"Hello, Al," said Pooh. "I hope you're not too late how are you, Al? Piglet and I just came to see how you were because it's Thursday." "Sit down, Pooh, sit down, Piglet," said Al kindly. "Make yourselves comfortable." They thanked him and made themselves as comfortable as they could. "Because you see, Al," said Pooh, "we've been hurrying so as to be in time as to see you before we went away again." Al nodded solemnly. "Correct me if I am wrong," he said, "but am I right in supposing that it is a very blusterous day outside?" "Very," said Piglet, who was quietly thawing his ears and wishing that he was safely back in his own house. "I thought so," said Al. "It was on just such a blusterous day as this that my Uncle Robert, a portrait of whom you will see upon the wall to your right, while returning in the late afternoon from a—" "What's that?" There was a loud cracking noise. "Look out!" cried Pooh. "Mind the clock! Out of my way, Piglet! Piglet, I'm falling on you! Help!" cried Piglet. Pooh's side of the room was slowly tilting upwards, and his chair began sliding down onto Piglet's. The clock slithered gently along the mantelpiece, collecting vases on the way, until they all crashed together onto what had once been the floor, but was now trying to see what it looked like as a wall. Uncle Robert, who was going to be now the new hearthrug, and was bringing the rest of his wall with him as carpet, met Piglet's chair just as Piglet was expecting to leave it. And for a little while it became very difficult to remember which was really the north. Then there was another loud crack. Al's room collected itself feverishly, and there was silence. In a corner of the room, the tablecloth began to wriggle. Then it wrapped itself into a ball and rolled across the room. Then it jumped up and down once or twice and put out two ears. It rolled across the room again and unwound itself. "Pooh," said Piglet nervously. "Yes," said one of the chairs. "Where are we?" "I'm not quite sure," said the chair. Are we in Al's house?" "I think so, because we were just going to have tea and we hadn't had it." "Oh," said Piglet. "Well, did Al always have a letterbox in the ceiling?" "Has he?" "Yes, look." "I can't," said Pooh. "I'm face downwards under something, and that, Piglet, is a very bad position for looking at ceilings." "Well, he has, Pooh." "Perhaps he's changed it," said Pooh, "just for a change." There was a disturbance behind the table in the other corner of the room, and Al was with them again. "Ah, Piglet," said Al, looking very much annoyed. "Where's Pooh?" "I'm not quite sure," said Pooh. Al turned at his voice and frowned at as much of Pooh as he could see. "Pooh," said Al severely, "did you do that?" "No," said Pooh humbly, "I don't think so." "Then who did?" "I think it was the wind," said Piglet. "I think your house is blown down." "Oh, is that it? I thought it was Pooh." "No," said Pooh. "If it was the wind," said Al, considering the matter, "then it wasn't Pooh's fault. No blame can be attached to him." With those kind words he flew up to look at his new ceiling. "Piglet!" called Pooh in a loud whisper. Piglet leant down to him. "Yes, Pooh?" "What did he say was attached to me?" "He said he didn't blame you." "Oh, I thought he meant— Oh, I see." No. "Al," said Piglet, "come down and help Pooh." Al, who was admiring his letterbox, flew down again. Together they pushed and pulled at the armchair, and in a little while Pooh came out from underneath and was able to look around him again. "Well," said Al, This is a nice state of things." "What are we going to do, Pooh? Can you think of anything?" asked Piglet. "Well, I had just thought of something," said Pooh. "It was just a little thing I thought of." And he began to sing. "I lay on my chest and I thought it best to pretend I was having an evening rest. I lay on my tum and I tried to hum, but nothing particular seemed to come. My face was flat on the floor, and that is all very well for an acrobat, but it doesn't seem fair to a friendly bear to stiffen him out with a basket chair, and a sort of squoze which grows and grows is not too nice for his poor old nose, and a sort of squatch is much too much for his neck and his mouth and his ears and such." "That was all," said Pooh. Owl coughed in an unadmiring sort of way, and said that if Pooh was sure that was all, they could now give their minds to the problem of escape. "Because," said Owl, "we can't go out by what used to be the front door. Something's fallen on it." "But how else can you get out?" asked Piglet anxiously. "That is the problem, Piglet, to which I am asking Pooh to give his mind." Pooh sat on the floor, which had once been a wall, and gazed up at the ceiling, which had once been another wall, with a front door in it, which had once been a front door, and tried to give his mind to it. "Could you fly up to the letter box with Piglet on your back?" he asked. "No," said Piglet quickly, "he couldn't." Owl explained about the necessary dorsal muscles. He explained this to Pooh and Christopher Robin once before, and had been waiting ever since for a chance to do it again, because it is a thing which you can easily explain twice before anybody knows what you are talking about. "Because, you see, Owl, if we could get Piglet into the letter box, he might squeeze through the place where the letters come and climb down the tree and run for help." Piglet said hurriedly that he had been getting bigger lately and couldn't possibly, much as he would like to, and Owl said that he had had his letterbox made bigger lately in case he got bigger letters, so perhaps Piglet might. And Piglet said, "But you said the necessary you-know-whats wouldn't." And Owl said, "No, they won't, so it's no good thinking about it." And Piglet said, "Then we better think of something else," and began to at once. But Pooh's mind had gone back to the day when he had saved Piglet from the flood, and everybody had admired him so much. And as that didn't often happen, he thought he would like it to happen again. And suddenly, just as it had come before, an idea came to him. "Owl," said Pooh, "I have thought of something." "Astute and helpful bear," said Owl. Pooh looked proud at being called a stout and helpful bear, and said modestly that he just happened to think of it. "You tied a piece of string to Piglet, and you flew up to the letter box with the other end in your beak, and you pushed it through the wire and brought it down to the floor, and you and Pooh pulled hard at the end, and Piglet went slowly up at the other end, and there you were." "And there Piglet is," said Owl, "if the string doesn't break." "Supposing it does?" said Piglet, really wanting to know. "Then we try another piece of string." This was not very comforting to Piglet, because however many pieces of string they tried pulling up with, it would always be the same hymn coming down. But still, it did seem the only thing to do. So with one last look back in his mind at all the happy hours he'd spent in the forest not being pulled up to the ceiling by a piece of string, Piglet nodded bravely at Pooh and said that it was a very clever plan. "It won't break," whispered Pooh comfortingly, "because you're a small animal, and I'll stand underneath, and if you save us all, it will be a very grand thing to talk about afterwards, and perhaps I'll make up a song, and people will say it was so grand what Piglet did that a respectful Pooh song was made about it." Piglet felt much better after this, and when everything was ready and he found himself slowly going up to the ceiling, he was so proud that he would have called out, "Look at me!" if he hadn't been afraid that Pooh and Al would let go of their end of the string and look at him. "Up we go," said Pooh cheerfully. "The ascent is proceeding as expected," said Al helpfully. Soon it was over. Piglet opened the letterbox and climbed in. Then, having untied himself, he began to squeeze into the slit, through which in the old days, when front doors were front doors, many an unexpected letter that Wal had written to himself had come slipping. He squeezed and he squoze, and then with one last squooze he was out. Happy and excited, he turned round to squeak a last message to the prisoners. "It's all right," he called through the letterbox. "Your tree is blown right over, Al, and there's a branch across the door. But Christopher Robin and I can come move it, and we'll bring a rope for Pooh, and I'll go and tell him now, and I can climb down quite easily. I mean, it's dangerous, but I can do it all right. And Christopher Robin and I will be back in about half an hour. Goodbye, Pooh." And without waiting to hear Pooh's answering goodbye and thank you, Piglet, he was off. "Half an hour," said Al, sitting himself comfortably. "That will just give me time to finish that story I was telling you about my Uncle Robert, a portrait of whom you see beneath you. Now let me see, where was I? Oh yes. It was on just such a blusterous day as this that my Uncle Robert—" Pooh closed his eyes.